Cutter's Degrassi Unpopular Opinions. Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cutter, and I'm welcoming you to another Degrassi Unpopular Opinion. And this is a very big unpopular opinion, and I'm surprised I never did this one in the CDUO series. I know I've talked about him in Whatever It Takes, that miniseries about the Rick Brewer storyline. I've talked about him in my Degrassiisms playlist and my what ifs and all that, and partially talked about him in the ranker.com characters list and basically the Degrassi Next Generation characters list. But I never talked about him in a I guess I did talk about him in Degrassi Unpopular Opinions, but not as the main guy. Well, although you could say that in the season 4 EO one, I talked about him and Jay. But anyway, yeah, this is a very big one because because now he's the main topic of a Degrassi Unpopular Opinion that's all about him and doesn't always involve the Rick Murray situation 100%. You know who I'm talking about. Let's not beat around the bush. It's Raditch. So this Degrassi Unpopular Opinion / hot take is Raditch gets more crap than he deserves. Now, some of you who have been hanging on to my stuff for like the past 2+ years say, hang on a minute. Aren't you the guy that basically said that you would, if you saw Raditch, you would beat the tar out of him? Or I would punch him out. Yep. But remember, in 2017, when I decided to think about doing stuff about Rick Murray and all that on YouTube and doing a manifesto, basically, I just couldn't get my hand over the fact that Raditch screwed up and basically was just pissy. And, I thought, why does he get like a good send-off? He's basically the scum of the earth, and I would punch him out. However, that was 2017. When I started doing the stuff online and all that and say all my opinion pieces, basically the Degrassi Reddit community made me change my mind. And I'm glad about the Reddit community because I love the fact that they have been a big muse to me and that basically my opinions were kind of shitty. But that doesn't mean that everyone agrees with that philosophy. The philosophy is basically that Raj should never be forgiven for what he did about the Rick Murray situation. I beg to differ. Like, remember, I've done 2 years of research on this topic, and so basically, I figure that Raj basically did himself in. Yes, he did, but there were more factors than him just ignoring Rick. So, as we all know, Raj was the English teacher in Degrassi Junior High, and then he elevated himself to vice principal of Degrassi High before that show ended, and basically he became principal of Degrassi Community Schools. Like, him? Okay, maybe he's a fair and non-judgmental principal. Well, in a sense, he was for a while. First season and a half, yeah, you could say that. He does punish Spinner for mooning the school and all that because Spinner decided to give Jimmy his one ADD pill. And it's funny that we never got to get through the ADD plot. That was just that one episode. Like, fuck. Wish we had more. Second of all, like, basically, season 2 is like, okay, fair enough. Not much about him. He appears in episodes, but he's basically not really that angry and all that. And then comes Emma and her genetically modified foods crusade. So basically put, when Emma is mad about the fact that there should be non-GMO foods and all that, and gives Raditch and tomato, which he eats like an apple, which is funny in itself. It's like, Raditch is okay, and then that. Now, Raditch does come off being sympathetic in a sense because of what he tells the school, what he tells Ashley, Emma, and the other Crusaders who said, I love the idea. I think you did a good presentation, but unfortunately, because of budgetary cuts, and we're lucky to have a cafeteria, I can't do anything about it. Sorry about that. It's a cost thing, and most teenagers don't know what it's like to run a school on its budget and all that. Emma thinks that Raditch was not giving her the time of day, which is false. Raditch at least gave him an explanation. So she passes out flyers. Raditch takes them away, and Emma is about to wave the white flag. And Raditch had a right to take away her flyers. But then there's this stupid cafeteria commercial mocking Emma, and basically Emma decides to get mad at Sheila, the cafeteria lady, and basically rips a tray away from Toby. Accidentally, she ripped it off, and then it starts a food fight. Raj basically pins her for everything and basically suspends her for the afternoon, which is funny because I thought he would have given her many detentions and all that. But I think he just wanted to get rid of Emma once and for all. Emma's upset, and Raj says that it's because of those flyers. Of course, Raj got it wrong because how many students actually took Emma's flyers? Like maybe 5, 6, 7? Like, yeah, right. Like Raj basically needs to find a way and basically explains to Emma why she's being suspended. She doesn't take the bait and sits in on Snake's class. Sadly, though, Snake is not too pleased with it. Emma says this is all Raj's fault. Now, Emma does have a right to complain, but Raj basically was right. I mean, yeah, Raj could have just given her detention and all that. Emma still would have kicked up a fucking fuss. So basically, Raj was just looking for a way to get rid of Emma while he thought about things. But basically, Emma decides to protest off school grounds, and Raj still is pissed off at her and basically gives her the ultimatum. You apologize for everything that went down this day, or you're suspended for a week. Emma gives Raditch a speech to look over the next day. Raditch says, I'm glad we can come to an agreement. Unfortunately, Emma fakes it. Emma goes halfway through her speech, but basically realizes that she can't do it. This is not her. She said that she would give up her genetically modified foods crusade in exchange for free speech. And Raditch is protrude that Emma is not apologizing for what she did to him. And worst of all is basically that Emma decides to say to the students that if this gets me suspended for a week, it's worth it. And Raditch is pissed. Mostly because, he hoped that all the students would not get in his way, but Emma got in his way, and he basically fumed. I'm actually surprised Raditch didn't try to go after Simpson, saying, what did you say to Emma and all that? But for good reason. I think basically then he would have been in deep trouble with the school board. Now, you say, well, why did he do that stuff? He basically just triggered Emma and all that. That's his worst part. Like, he had a point to take away her flyers, and Emma was going to concede, and then the cafeteria commercial. But I don't know if Raditch had played a hand in it, because if he did, then basically Raditch was a sore loser. What an idiot. And then in season 3, he basically puts people in Saturday detention for things. Now, as menial as they are, he did have a point. Like Sean for bad-mouthing Raditch. Okay, most principals don't like that. Ellie for skipping class and all that. Although I thought it was because she missed so many classes because of her cutting things. But no, we found out that Ellie purposely did that to get a story for her co-op. Man, Ellie. Hazel for looking at some illegal sites. You can do that on school grounds. Yep, that's a punishable offense. And Toby and Jimmy, because they basically Toby tried to have Jimmy's grades changed so Jimmy could go to a concert. Now, people forget that Toby was willing to do it, but his laptop got busted, so he couldn't do it off school grounds. Because if he could have do Jimmy's stuff off school grounds, then they would not have been caught. But Jimmy told him, well, you're in too deep. And then, of course, Toby ratted Jimmy out when Raditch got him in the act. Now, the punishments were, okay, that's fine, but, like, you just couldn't just give him snap detentions for a few days during the school week? Like, why? It just doesn't make sense. And we find out that Raditch goes to the school on Saturday. And basically, he works out. He does school stuff. Does he have a wife? Does he have kids? I don't think so. Because why would he be smooching with Hatzalakos in a deleted scene in season 3? Freaky. So anyway, yeah. Simpson basically tells them that they're kids and they're paying for their crimes. Why are you being so stubborn? But of course, Raditch does get sympathy for that because, after all, Simpson wasn't there when everything went down because Simpson had chemo. Like, Snake didn't know the extent of things, and they are punishable offenses. So anyway, Raditch kind of wins in that one because, as you can say, that basically everyone gets them wrong and all that. Like, punishing them was one thing, but in-school suspensions or in-school detentions would have been better. Of course, Raditch would have also been in deep trouble if it was found out that he planted Ellie in there to keep an eye on Sean and the others. But thankfully, though, for him, is that Ellie did it herself. And, Ellie and Sean got together. Hazel and Jimmy got together because of that. Poor Toby, though. Nobody to love. So Raditch basically may have been overreactionary in a few of those cases, but he was justified in a few ways. And then came season 4, and then came the Rick Murray situation. I didn't say I wasn't going to talk about the Rick Murray situation. I just said the Rick Murray thing wasn't 100% of what I was talking about, and it wasn't. So a lot of people actually did talk about a background scene in season 4 in like the first or second episode that basically saw Raditch talking to Armstrong and Armstrong wanting supplies, and Raditch basically saying that the budget didn't really come out. I don't know what to do. I'll make sure I get you the supplies whenever possible. When do you need them? I said, I needed them yesterday. I need them right now. And Raditch says, I have other teachers to deal with. You're high on the priority list, but, And some people even thought that when he brought Rick back, it was to improve the GPA, which would have improved budget stuff. I don't think that's true. It's a good thinking. And then, of course, Rick comes back to the school in the 4th episode and shakes Raditch's hand. It's like, what the fuck? Everyone is upset over it. Marco and Alex, who were student council president and vice president, decided to tell Raditch off. And basically, they say that Raditch is making a terrible mistake and all that. And basically, Raditch is basically saying that Terry's not at the school anymore. Basically, what can I do? And all that. And of course, Alex accuses him of putting Rick there to improve the GPA, basically saying that that's the only reason why Rick's back at the school, which isn't completely true. I mean, when you look at things, it's like, well, why would you do such a thing like that? But when it comes down to it, it's like it makes sense. But here's the thing that ticks me off the most is that it was a deleted scene, and why did they not put that in the scene? It just didn't make sense. It never makes sense, does it? So what can you do? What can you do? Can't really do too much, can you? So basically, things looked bad in a way. When Raditch has a good thinking, all that, and I, of course, am thinking to myself, why the heck would he allow, Rick to come back in such a way? You're going to hear some background noise for a few seconds. Oh, no, I got it. Sorry, I'm just basically looking at stuff because I forgot to do my thinking and all that. But when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking that, Raditch had a right because Raditch told Marco and Alex straight out that no criminal charges were placed. And basically his hands were kind of tied because I believe if a criminal charge had happened, then Raditch would probably not have allowed Rick to come back to the school and all that. I mean, you put that, I say that in a lot of videos, you put that deleted scene in the finished product, even in first, and it gets cut in syndication for some reason. Like in the first product, the first run stuff, it makes sense. It makes Raditch less evil than we all think he is, in a sense. Because when you come down to nitty gritty, basically when you watch the Mercy Street without the deleted scene in mind, basically, it seems that Raditch is basically shooting Marco and Alex off, saying that they have no power. And of course, Raditch blows up at Emma, saying that this is not one of your stupid crusades. Stay away from this. Of course, as I said in my unpopular opinion, I think Raditch still had a bone to pick with Emma because Emma basically not only had done a crusade under his watch, but basically she had said that, this is what's happening and all that. He still is pissed at her because, in a sense, that she basically said what Raditch's policies are, and he was afraid that the students were going to take that information and run the school and basically run over him. Like, yeah, his ego sucked. Of course, Raditch was not in a lot of things until Time Stand Still Part 1, when Rick goes to him because of Jimmy being put on the Wacky Brain team in Heather's absence. However, Raditch basically shoos Rick off, saying that, you're saying this stuff. I can't force people to make friends with you. You gotta try harder. It takes two to tango. Like, Raditch is right because of all that. But here's the thing. As I keep saying, Rick did himself in. If Rick had said the magic word was just, he's bullying me. If he had come out with that philosophy, then Raditch would have taken him seriously. Or at worst, Raditch says, I'm busy right now. Come back to me tomorrow if this keeps happening. Then I think maybe he would be a little, like, he would be bad, but it would be basically, he'd be a little more sympathetic because at least he gave Rick a chance to come back the next day. But of course, Rick went through the whole stitches get snitches philosophy, and basically he didn't tell anybody about the abuse he suffered. Plus, I think that Rick basically figured that they were going to get their aggression on him in a few days, and then basically just it would stop. It never stopped. Never stopped. So, yeah. So what you got is basically a philosophy. Is that basically Raditch was being evil in that source. He wasn't being completely evil. I mean, like, Raditch was being terrible, a terrible listener. However, because Rick said he's bothering me when he won't be my friend and doesn't say anything else, Raditch figures that basically it's just because Jimmy won't be his friend. And as I said, if Rick had said the magic word being bullied and all that, fair enough. Then Raditch probably would have taken him better. And maybe some people would say that, Raditch would be a little more sympathetic. They say, okay, maybe he tried. Of course, he watches the Whack Your Brain thing through his computer. Badass move, especially in 2004. And then, another deleted scene screwed over people's perceptions of him. When Rick comes back to school with his painted feathers on still, Spitter sees him, goes, brah, brah, brah. And Raditch snaps, telling Spitter to be in my office for 3:30 for a serious talk. And then he talks to Rick, saying that, I'm sorry for what happened, take the rest of the day off. And Rick says, I gotta go to my locker. Raditch says, okay, but come back afterwards. And Snake is not too pleased with Raditch blowing him off. Quote unquote blowing him off, if you will. So, yeah, and Raditch and Snake get into a tiff. And that was not, and when we saw them blow up at the media lab, that wasn't their first clash. That was their second clash and all that. I think if people watched that deleted scene, they basically think that at least Raditch was trying his best, but he didn't have a plan, and he basically still thought Rick was just trying to make friends when he tells Snake, this is not preschool, and this is not, and making friends is not part of the curriculum. Like, he freaking missed the point. Okay, he's a villain for that, but he missed the point. If people saw that, then people will realize, oh my gosh, Raditch screwed up when he had a chance because, he thought it was petty. And then basically, Raditch was trying to fix the school and all that because now, after Rick's shooting and all that, they're now part of 6 o'clock news and it put in a negative light. And Raditch is worried about how the school will be perceived. I get that. Principals do that. But the problem is he decides to throw a play off that's in Dracula and make it a musical about how good Degrassi could be. He has the right idea, but the play was meant to help heal the students. And I know that a lot of people said, it doesn't make sense why he would do that. Is he hiding something? But here's the thing. It's a week after the tragedy. It might be too soon to put on the play. Although he could have just said, we have to postpone the play for a while, keep practicing it, but until the time is right, we can't do that, especially with how gory it seems to be. But it's more lighthearted. Look at Dracula. Liberty and JT tried to make him see the light, but basically, Raditch basically isn't too happy with it. And then they do the musical. JT balks at singing the anti-Raditch song, but Liberty doesn't. And basically, Raditch throws a book at both of them, saying that you'll rewrite the play in detention on Monday. And then basically, a few days later, he's been reassigned, not fired, reassigned to another school in some capacity. I don't know what capacity he would be down. How low on the ladder would he be? Principal is usually high, and then a teacher is low. So where would he have ended up? What school and what position? So basically, they gave him a nice send off, and I think some people were pissed off that they basically gave Raditch a send off when he wasn't supposed to get it. But personally, it was okay. It should have been better. But here's the thing, though, is that for how bad Raditch screwed up the Rick Murray situation, it wasn't all his fault. Like, there were a lot of factors that basically were out of his control, especially the students and all that. I keep saying this, that, they got less flack than they should have. I mean, after all, they were the ones who took Emma's orange ribbon cause as an excuse to beat up on Rick in the name of domestic violence victims. That they basically bullied Rick to submission. And the question remains, how much did the teachers know about this, and how much did Raditch know about this? But in my mind, I think Raditch off screen basically was just kicking himself. He spent that weekend after Rick's death probably just blaming himself, saying, what did I do wrong and all that. And yeah, ignoring Rick and the whole problem. That was probably enough to throw him out of Degrassi. But then, you got the aftermath and all that. And basically, Alex put it perfectly, saying that I'm all about rebellion, but I'm not all about expulsion. That kind of tells us off screen, after Rick's situation, how Raditch could basically be a tyrant. But the thing that ticks me off about him is that, he never got the answers. It seemed like, did he search for answers? Probably not. I wish he did, because then at least he tried, and he goes out on a higher note, if you will. So yeah, I can't, Raditch is more sympathetic. You gotta think that Raditch is not the worst person in this whole Rick Murray situation. Rick is the worst because he brought a gun to the school for vengeance. And yes, of course, he did retaliate against Spinner, Jay, and Alex. That would have sent them over the edge to get Rick back. But Jay was a major villain because he basically plotted this to destroy Rick. He had no qualms. He had no connections with Terry or Rick and all that. What connection did he have with this whole situation in season 3? None. Silch. And he basically told Alex and Spinner to keep their mouths shut, and basically he didn't care about their feelings. Spinner is the third biggest villain because of his involvement and keeping it and bottling it, and Alex was number 4. I mean, Alex should have been ranked higher, but I mean, you could be a little sympathetic towards her because she has to deal with domestic violence because her mother's boyfriends always beat her up somehow. Raditch for me is the 5th biggest villain. I mean, he didn't take part in the bullying, but he could stop the bullying, and that just ticks me off. I'm gonna do a bit of a plug for this guy. Unusually Eric. He is on YouTube, and he has over 1,300 subscribers. He does Degrassi rewatchings and posts videos up and all that. I know YouTube is a bit of a bitch when it comes to clips and all that, because my whatever it takes thing would have been much better if I was allowed to upload the clips. But unusually Eric has done well. He rewatches Degrassi, but he also rewatches Degrassi Junior High and all that, and a few other shows. So basically, he started doing the thing about episode 4 and all that. So basically, yeah. A lot of people basically said that, why was Emma involved in this whole thing? But this person by the name of Paris October said something that really got to me, and this is about Raditch. Here we go. Paris says, I also believe that bullying Rick was a way for all those kids who felt powerless, like Jay and Alex, to have some level of authority and control. Even Emma doesn't fit in at this moment and takes on these crusades as a way to have control. A part of me is glad that She sees that what this is inciting interferes and stops it, but it should not have gotten to this point. Why didn't Raditch and the staff prepare them for his return, hold meetings or an assembly? If Rick wanted to be forgiven, why not apologize to the Degrassi community and work to earn their forgiveness? He thought he could waltz back into Degrassi and face no repercussions. This is a perfect quote. I like this quote a lot from Paris. Paris has it right, and I'm shocked myself that I didn't even realize that for all the stuff I say is that it makes perfect sense. It makes sense because it's like Raditch had the power to stop this whole thing, and he screwed up. It's basically that, it makes total sense. It makes sense because, I mean, why didn't Raditch prepare the students for his return? Why didn't he just say something even on the PA and all that about Rick not being coming? Rick is coming back and there's nothing you can do about it. The students took the Orange Ribbon campaign as an excuse to beat up Rick, but also I believe they took it as an excuse to basically say that, they have to take matters in their own hands because they felt powerless. It all fits in. It all fits in. Perfect. Yeah, so I get it. So basically, yeah, I guess maybe that last point about Raditch not preparing the students for Rick's return and all that, and seemingly not giving Rick any conditions upon his return and all that. Although Rick did claim he was with Sove, but it's hard to believe that maybe he was taking things with Sove, but we never knew the right answer. So yeah, so I think Raditch got a bit of a bad break with this whole Rick Murray situation. He is a little bit more sympathetic. I mean, you can understand what happened. I mean, yeah, he didn't get fired; he just got reassigned. But maybe the old boys never helped him out. And a lot of people said, why didn't Raditch just get fired? In this culture, 2020 culture, he definitely would have been fired. No bones about it. I mean, Raditch probably felt bad about everything. That's probably why he went to Los Angeles to do Chop Cut Rebuild. Maybe he just couldn't handle it and basically realized that he shouldn't stay in Toronto because it reminds him of this whole bad stuff with him. I don't know. It's just me. That's just me. So anyway, thanks for watching this long-winded CDUO, and we'll see you later.